Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, this week, Englishness. What does Englishness mean to you? Right, for me, above all else, it means this. Tea bags, PG tips specifically. If ever I'm abroad and I can't get a decent cup of tea, that's when I know I'm definitely English.
I suppose I should have said it resembles tea.
It keeps coming up a lot, Englishness, particularly in the aftermath of the election. And there's this idea that's kind of been thrown about that basically English people are inherently conservative, and also that the left are really uncomfortable with national identity, with the idea of being English, that even they're anti-English. So I want to take that on. Now, first off, it's fair to say that being English is quite complicated, because I grew up in Stockport, for example. I did sell out my northern roots. I'm basically a plastic northerner. I live in London now. But living in Stockport when I was growing up and living in London now, I mean, they're basically almost like different countries. I also think people often have shared interests that go across borders. So a supermarket worker in Glasgow, in Manchester, in Madrid, in Paris, in Warsaw, they have more in common, I think, in lots of ways with each other than they do with their bosses. They all want good rights in the workplace, a good decent wage, and they often come into conflict with their employer who just wants to make profit. I don't think there's anything wrong at all with the left embracing Englishness as an identity. In fact, I think we should be reclaiming it from the right. And what that means is challenging the idea that being English is conservative. That is all about kings and queens, about empire, about not being an immigrant.
I could mind a split in two and stuff you up an elephant's trunk.
And what we should be talking about is actually a very proud history and very proud traditions and values that often we don't talk about enough. So it goes back many, many centuries. It goes back to the Peasants Revolt of the 14th century, when people from across particularly southern England, they rose up in revolt against a poll tax imposed by a despotic monarchy that was trampling all over their rights. And they gathered at Blackheath, and this radical preacher called John Ball addressed this huge, impressive crowd of men and women, and women played a big role in it. And he said, when Adam delved and Eve span, who then was the gentleman? And what he was saying is the class system was completely irrational. Why are some people seen as being superior, of being at the top of a hierarchy, while others at the bottom of the pecking order? And then there's the English Revolution. And during this great English Revolution, we saw the flourishing of radical movements, particularly the Levellers and the Diggers. And the Levellers, for example, were fighting for the idea of democracy way before the idea of democracy really came into its own. And the Diggers were kind of early socialists. They fought for the idea of equality, of sharing the wealth amongst the people of the country as a whole. And then there's the Chartists of the 19th century, the Tolpuddle martyrs, the Suffragettes, the trade unionists, the people who fought for the NHS and the welfare state, the people who fought sexism and racism and homophobia as well. Now, why am I telling you all about this? Well, that is a history we don't hear about enough, because it's quite a subversive history. It's a history that reminds us that the way we get change isn't by waiting for the powerful at the top to wake up one day and think, oh, I'm feeling generous, I think I'll give people their rights. But often it was people from below. So the next time you hear someone saying, the English are conservative, or the idea that the left doesn't embrace Englishness, that is hostile to English identity, I think we should all remind them that there's a different sort of Englishness, a different sort of history, one we can all be proud of people who built this country by their hands or by their brains, and that's what Englishness should be all about. So I want to hear your thoughts. What does being English mean to you? What sort of values, what sort of traditions are you interested in? So leave your comments, whether you agree or disagree. I'll get back to as many of those comments as I can, and tune in next time for the next video. Cheers.